So I really like cooking. And I really, actually, I think, Seth, you mentioned this a minute, like one of the other previous episodes where it's like, oh, like cooking for someone else is very special.
Yes.
So like I tend to take over a good chunk of cooking duties in our house, but I'm also really bad with portioning. So I don't know how to make food for 2 people. I only know how to make food for 1 person or 12. So this it's not a very useful skill. But yesterday I made a lasagna and it's like, okay, we'll have lasagna for like 3 days or until we get sick of it. I don't really want to freeze it because then I'll forget about it in the freezer. It'll be there for, a year and then I'll pull it up and be like, what is this? I guess I'm throwing it out. And I made a lasagna yesterday and I have this giant baking dish that is probably like, it's like 18 inches by like 8 inches by like 5 inches. It is a very, very big, deep baking dish. That thing was overflowing with lasagna. So I had to invite my wife's sister over today to help us eat the lasagna because there's no way that we could conceivably eat this amount of lasagna in a reasonable time. And it is all going to go to waste unless I can employ our entire family to come and relieve us of this god-awful lasagna. And by god-awful, it's good, but it's just way, way, way too much. So that's my cold open. Welcome to Overthinking Games, a podcast about what video games can teach us. My name is Brett, and I am joined by co-hosts, people.
Dempsey, what's up? Howdy, it's your boy. I've been thinking about giving myself a rap name, but I don't. Yeah, I don't feel like I'm like confident enough to do that. There's just things where I feel like if I did, people would look at me and be like, I know he's a fraud. So anyways, hi, I'm Dempsey.
Hi, I'm Seth. I don't have a super interesting thing to say. I'm just here.
So tell me more about this rap name that you want to give yourself. You should definitely give yourself a rap name.
Yeah, here's the thing, is that I think at some point I watched a TikTok where someone was like, yo, it's your boy Skinny Penis. And then anytime I'm like, yo, it's your boy, I want to say Skinny Penis, which is the rap name. And I can't that's just what automatically comes into my brain when I'm giving myself a rap name. I think if I had a rap name, it would have to be like ironic.
You gotta go on Facebook and find those phishing posts that are like, your rap name is this plus this plus this, but it's like you have to give your entire like date of birth, or they'll ask for your SIN number. They'll be like, your SIN number ends with 6. Your rap name is this.
No, that's great. I'll go back to like 2011 Facebook.
Yeah. It'd be like the last thing you wore, or the color of your shirt plus the last thing you ate. It's like my rap name is Orange Lasagna.
That's good. I want to do my introduction again.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just start again from introductions. Okay. Go ahead, Dempsey. I'll edit it so it sounds like this never happened.
Hi, it's Dempsey. A very normal, non-rap name. Howdy.
So true.
So did we run this a second time and you butchered it worse than the first time?
No, this is the first time, Seth. We've never done a second take ever.
Mistake.
This is the first take. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now for your first take of your name. Introduce yourself for the first time today.
Yeah. I'm Seth, which actually is my stage name. My real name is actually Frederick.
Is that a biblical name?
Seth? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it?
Brett's not a biblical name.
No, God, no. Although I was called Mordecai in like grade 8 for some reason. There was like 6-month stint where I was Mordecai. Doesn't make any sense. I'm not Jewish, yourself? But no, it was given to me. That name was given to me by some people that were 2 years older than me. It was a very confusing experience. So, anyways, that aside, today I kind of wanted to talk about anxiety and I guess coping mechanisms, because I've realized lately that video games have given me a very good avenue to explore coping mechanisms without me realizing it for various things, whether it be talking to people or dealing with anxiety in stressful situations. So that's what I want to talk about today. But before we talk about that, we should talk about what we've been playing this week. And I guess I can just go first. The only really new thing that I've played this week is No One Lives Under the Lighthouse. Dempsey was kind enough to impart me with a gift of No One Lives Under the Lighthouse. And if no one has ever played it, it is like a PS1 graphic horror game that is very vaguely Lovecraftian. And it is very cool. It's also a very short game. So Steam says that I played it for 2.2 hours. And that was enough for me to flounder around for 20 minutes, not understanding what I was supposed to do in the first part, because I thought there was going to be a tutorial and there wasn't. And for me to beat the game once. So it was a really cool game. I really enjoyed it. Again, very short, very digestible. And it does Lovecraftian horror pretty well. I've been griping on Lovecraftian horror games quite a bit on the podcast. This one does it pretty well. It's pretty confusing and inexplicable at times. And I think it does confusing and inexplicable very, very well. It kind of like jumps you around a lot. I don't want to spoil too much because I think that people should just go play it because it's pretty cheap and it's really short. And I think people would really enjoy it. But basically, you play a lighthouse keeper and you are someone who is just tasked with the lighthouse. The game just says, just make sure you keep the lens clean and keep it lit. And that's all it gives you. The game does not give you anything else. You go into the lighthouse and you're given like a lantern and an oil lamp thing or an oil dripper canister thing. And all you have to do is maintain the lighthouse. And then it gets really creepy. That's pretty much all I've been playing. Oh, I did want to say one thing. I think it did boss encounters. One of my favorite ways I've ever seen a boss encounter done in a game. And this isn't really it's not really spoilery, but basically instead of you running from the monster or running from whatever is chasing you, from your perspective, you go outside and then all of a sudden it switches you to the monster's perspective and it's running at you, but you're still controlling your character. So you have to like, the controls are all like super janky and weird, but you have to like run away from the monster in a third person view, but you can't control the camera. And you just have to like run and find somewhere to get in and like hide from the monster. It is genuinely super cool. It's very disorienting. And every time it happened, I died at least once because I just was not expecting it. And it takes you a minute to like figure out which way is forward because it's very confusing, but it's very, 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 very cool. So No One Lives Under the Lighthouse. If you want a good, quick, spooky game, please go play that game. It's really fantastic. And that's all I really have to say about that. So, Dempsey, what have you been playing?
Wait, go Seth. I need to Google something very important.
Seth, what have you been playing?
Not a ton. It was my birthday yesterday. Fun fact.
Oh, happy belated.
I am now old. And by that, I mean I'm 27.
Yeah, you're still young.
The record is not old. So what I have been playing, though, is I picked up a couple like older games for me. Somebody, I think on the podcast, was talking about Vampire Survivors.
Yeah.
So I decided to play some Vampire Survivors, which is fun. Like, I don't know what other commentary to offer for this game. I own like none of the DLC. But also, I don't think I ever realized that I didn't unlock everything in, like, the base game. Because this game is actually, like, kind of insanely big for how much content it has. But I also played, like, version 1.0 of this game. Like, I think I played Vampire Survivors, like, right when it came out. It had, like, 5 characters, and that was it. So it's hard for me to tell, like... Because now the game has, like, multiple dozen. So I'm like, did they add these over time? Were they all available since the start? But I was just stupid. Hard to tell. But it's fun, so I don't care. I played a little bit of Minecraft over the last couple days because I think we were talking about it on the podcast.
Yep.
And as you can tell, I just haven't been very inspired to play anything recently. So we were talking about it. I have this thing that I do whenever I play Minecraft, which is I just run Nether Hardcore. I start a new hardcore world, I turn cheats on, I put myself in the Nether, and then I turn cheats off, and I put myself back into survival. And then I just, like, start with a fresh save, but in the Nether. It's a good time. So that's some game stuff. I also just got into this war game that I've been looking at for a while called Conflict 47. It's essentially like alternate universe World War II, where nuclear bombs opened up hell portals. So it takes place in 1947, where we tested the first atomic bomb out in the desert in Arizona or Nevada. And then we were like, holy shit, it opened up a hell portal. Let's drop one on the Germans.
Oh my God. Let's still use it anyways and just ruin the world. Incredible. Love it.
So the in-lore for the series goes, there's the one that blew up in the US. Then we decided to drop one on Germany. But then we realized that we can go Doom style and just use hell technology. We can access they call it the Rift energy and then use it to make weapons and technology. So then we were like, shit, we dropped one of these on Germany and now they also have access to the tech. But then there's also the Illuminati took over Germany after it happened. And for some reason, we have it well contained in the United States, but they don't in Germany. So the Germans now have Nazi zombies, straight out of Call of Duty.
I was just gonna say, isn't this literally just the plot for zombies in early zombies?
Be. They literally have.
I'm not really
Nazi
that
zombies.
up on the lore, but that kind of sounds like. What
they also have
to me.
weird hell demons that are just part of the German troops. But is it otherwise a fairly normal World War II war game? They just have all the normal World War II tanks and infantry squads. But then they also have for your heavy weapon, instead of a light machine gun, you can take a heavy Tesla arc rifle. And you're like, that sounds sick. I'm putting that in my squad. So I'm excited to I read through the big lore book for that. I'm excited to build some of the minis. I bought myself their big starter set because they had a new edition launch where they're starting to do some plastic minis. And they have official new army boxes. So I bought myself the big starter set that comes with 2 starter armies, and I'm going to build it all up and everything. So that's really fun.
Yay,
not
new
gaming
Warhammer
related,
addiction.
What was that?
Yay, new Warhammer addiction.
Woo! Yeah, I will probably also just end up using the minis in my Warhammer army. So it goes both ways.
Cool.
I think that might be about it. Minecraft Vampire Survivors. Yeah, I'm kind of waiting for the Night Rain DLC to come out, which I think is December 4th. So another a little over a week and a half.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dempsey, what have you been playing?
So today is November 25th, 2025. Try to sneak the date in there somewhere. I have been playing No One Lives Under the Lighthouse, which I don't think I'm going to go back and play. I think I had the experience that I had, and I'm going to sit with that for a while. I think it's a game that you sit with for a little bit. We did a whole topic about this quite a while ago with a guest, CG Danny B, who's an indie game YouTuber and TikToker. And we talked about kind of what indie games can do that AAA games will never be able to do. And I think making 2-hour narrative experiences is just something that only indie games will ever be able to do. And I think No One Lives Under the Lighthouse is kind of a really, really good example of what video games are capable of and the freedom that they have when they're kind of unshackled from typical video game mechanics. It's really beautiful. I had to use the skip this encounter button once. It was during a time when the monster was chasing me and I also had to solve a puzzle. And the game...
Oh, I think I know. Is that the one where you have to collect all the little things? Yeah.
Yeah. That did not feel good ever. And the movement does not feel good. The monster coming at you does not feel good. Nothing about that feels good. So yeah, it was, I don't know. I was really captivated by it. I think I want to start, I think this is a genre that I'm becoming more and more interested in. It's this PS1 horror style game. I think I'm really happy that they're using fun aesthetics. It doesn't just look like another Unreal game which Hogwarts Legacy, I don't think it is an Unreal Engine game, but it does just look like another like Unreal Engine game. So the other game I've been playing a bit is Hogwarts Legacy. I am to the part where it's opened up a little bit and I can kind of throw a podcast on. I do not fast travel. I follow my little book.
Do you have the broom yet?
I do not have the broom.
Okay.
I do not have the broom. I have been going very slow. I really enjoy the production design of that game. I think the castle, like the Hogwarts itself, I think there is so much, like just the little like details of like the paintings moving. And like as you get closer to them, you can see more detail in their movement. And like there's just so many little tiny things about being in the world that makes it really good. It's made me think a lot of, and this might be its own topic one day, but it's made me think a lot of like how magic is used in video games. And I think there is something really nice about being able to use, like, I would say Harry Potter is like the most prototypical like magic pop culture reference that we have.
Definitely.
Like Lord of the Rings has magic, but like no one's like wielding it where you understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
But like in Harry Potter, you can literally see the kids sit in class learning a spell. You can like a big part is like going into the mechanics of a spell, what the spell is weak against and what the spell is strong against. And so
Magic Systems
like,
episode.
Yeah. And so with that background knowledge, it makes like, it's like you're learning like Leviosa or whatever. And I think the only reason I am enjoying this game as much as I do is because I like the movie so much. It's because I have that. It's because it's all prior knowledge. It's all IP based. Like their marketing gimmick worked. Is that they made Harry Potter into a game, and then people who like Harry Potter were going to be like, well, this is fun. And so, but yeah, I think like what I am interested in is how flexible and creative higher level spells are. And this is an insane take. This is a bad take. But I know they're making a second one. And so I think if they fuck it up this time, I'm going to be like, well, they get another shot. which is a bad...
You're saying for a third one?
What?
You're saying like if they fuck up the second one?
No. I'm saying if they fuck up this one. So like if the higher level spells in this game are not very interesting, which I'm afraid they're just going to be like combat spells that do more damage, which is like the lamest possible thing you can do with the Harry Potter game. But like, so I'm kind of worried about that. The combat system seems pretty simple to the point where I can't imagine what kind of other like flexibility you would have. You can like throw things at, like it's not like anything I've never played. Like I've done this combat system in a billion other games before. You match the right colors to the right attacks and whatever. And so, but it's not bothering me because I feel like maybe making an open world game is difficult. And so you're gonna make a bad first one, and then maybe the second one will have more, I don't know, more stuff. But it's mostly like being in the library and watching like the suits of armor like shift. And they do it like the suits of armor are such a good example because it always happens like right at the corner of your vision or like right before your camera is moving off of them or like right when your camera gets there, to where it's like there's these little fantastical things that are always happening like right at the edge of your perception. There's also like just like fun stuff like those horses you see when you die. So because our character saw someone die,
the Thestrals, just because I saw Seth make a face.
Yeah. So there's a type of horse that you can only see if you've seen someone die before. And so because our
this is like actual Harry Potter lore, right?
Yeah, this is actual Harry Potter stuff.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. And so because our main character has seen someone die, we now see those horses, which I think like just, I don't know, just like little things like that feel, they scratch a part of my brain that's very cozy. Brett's Cold Open also felt very fall and cozy. I'm also very happy I'm playing this in the fall because right now is a cozy time. Cozy time goes until about mid-January, and then it's just depression until about March, and then it's springtime, and springtime is euphoria. So you have cozy holiday season, and then depression, and then back to euphoria. So while I am playing Cozy Nice games in the Cozy Nice season, this is a very good game for that. I've also been putting more time in Katamari Damacy, which
Nice.
I cannot get to. I fucking hate the controls to that game. I love the conceit of it. Here's the things I don't like about Katamari Damacy. I wish that you could control the ball with just one stick. I know that's the whole point of the game, but I wish you could just control the ball with one stick and roll stuff around, because
Is there not an alternate control scheme where you can? I thought they added that into like the remastered or remade version.
I am not playing that.
Oh,
So,
okay. Never mind.
Yeah. So I'm playing the OG, but maybe I will look in. Maybe it's worth paying for now. Maybe that's a quality of life feature that I value enough. But so that's a little bit annoying. I understand the cutscene and the dialogue is charming and fun, but I would rather they cut 95% of it.
No,
because
it's the best. It's so weird. The game would be nothing without all that weirdness.
Because I like the central conceit of the game. Like, I just want to go from puzzle to puzzle, rolling things up. And like, I want to be able to like put music on and like kind of have my own like tailored experience. And then when the dialogue comes on, I feel like that kind of breaks that tailored experience. So anyways, it's a really beautiful game. If you've never played Katamari Damacy, I am so fast. It's such a good look at like scale and how to make things feel big or small like that, because obviously in 3D environments, all scale is relative because it's not real. So they have to give you things that you know the scale of. And then, like if you go into a 3D software or whatever, like all scale is relative. And so Katamari Damacy is like a really good look at like how you navigate and play with the idea of relative scale. And then I've been playing a little bit of Call of Duty Zombies. I've just been having like cozy games. This is a good time for me in video games.
Have you played Arctic Eggs?
No.
Okay. That is the weirdest cozy game that I've played, and it also fits in your like PS1 detuned kind of thing. It's also something you can complete in a couple hours. It's also got a lot of really weird dialogue, and the only mechanic is you have a frying pan and people give you things to fry. So you have to like move your mouse to like move the pan so things sizzle, and then you have to like flip eggs, and that's it. But it is an incredibly cozy, strange, detuned PS1 game, and I think you'd probably really like it for the vibe and just like the messaging that's in it. It's very cool.
Sure. Okay, cool. All right, Brett, we have topic.
So the topic of today is a little ambiguous, and I'm going to try to keep it as not depressing as possible, or as not depressing an episode about coping with anxiety can be.
Fair enough.
But basically what I was thinking of, so the whole thesis of this episode is I was playing some of Battlefield's new Battle Royale mode, and I noticed a general consensus. Sometimes I become self-aware of things that I do or things that I feel that I didn't really realize I felt. And I realized that when I'm playing Battle Royale games, when it gets down to, a few people being left and I realize, I could win this. Like, if I play this right, I could really win. My hands clam up. My heart starts racing like crazy. I sweat like crazy. And my head just starts spinning like I'm having a panic attack. And it's like, it's not a panic attack. As soon as I die, I'm fine. But I do have to like take a minute to like breathe. And I've had to talk myself through this like weird game anxiety like I'm actually having a panic attack. Like, I have to convince myself that nothing's wrong. No one's around you. You can just kneel down in a bush and relax for a minute. And I realized kind of through playing this game that I've developed these coping mechanisms that really help me with my own anxiety in real life just by playing video games and encountering a lot of stressful situations in video games. Because a lot of the games that I play tend to be stressful experiences. Because I also really like playing the Souls games. I like playing Metroidvania games. I like playing weird games of chance, or like Slay the Spire, Ring of Pain, those sorts of games that are very, like, they can be anxiety inducing, where you get towards the end of your run and it's just like, oh God, like if I play this right, like I win, but then you lose, you freak out, you get angry, throw your controller through a wall and learn how to cope with those things. So for me, I guess like that's the thesis of this episode, is just kind of how video games have helped you, or like given you ways to cope with things, not necessarily anxiety, but like has playing a game given you the ability to deal with something in real life?
So it's really interesting, Brett, because I think the first place my mind goes to two places. So the first place my mind goes to is the game Celeste, which is kind of explicitly about, like, both mechanically in the gameplay and also in the narrative and story is kind of explicitly about this, that like putting you in a really stressful situation and then like how do you handle the stressful situation is kind of the entire conceit of Celeste. I think Celeste is one of the most beautiful video games ever made. And like, I think that perseverance and patience, like Celeste was able to communicate those ideas to me in a way that nothing else was able to do. No other art form, I should say. Like, obviously, like the physical practice of something like sport or, wildlife photography or anything like that takes skill. But like, as far as like an art form, movies, books, things like that, video games, because they develop into a skill set, I think can teach you things about patience, determination, perseverance, kindness to yourself, all these things that no other medium can. For me, and this is going to sound, I don't know how this is going to, I think this is going to sound really nonsense and pretentious. I would say that the level on which this is true for me most often is not necessarily like the emotional immediate level like you were talking about, but like a larger existential level.
Right.
So like for Outer Wilds, for example, which Outer Wilds is my favorite game ever made, because it's about like, how do we find meaning, and is it possible to not manufacture meaning? And when we start manufacturing meaning, what does that process look like for how we make meaning for ourselves? And so like, I don't know if I would describe that as like emotional or like existential more, but there are so many games that have made existential ideas a lot clearer to me than like reading or anything else has. And I think it's because being a participant in that form of meaning making really impacts me. And so like Nier Automata, for example, it's kind of an exploration of like agency and faith and what faith means in a context in which you're given to it, and what faith and what actions mean within a faith system. And so like Nier Automata, like, although I wouldn't say like it impacted me on like an emotional or like a like necessarily like a immediate level like you were talking about, but it definitely gave me tools to like help navigate how I consider my own beliefs and like what role my actions play in the context of my beliefs, which is kind of the entire thesis of Nier Automata. It's like people who have beliefs trying to make actions commensurate, consistent with their beliefs, and where the struggles and utility comes from that. There's so many games that do that. Florence did that. And so I think like I have this experience, but like in like this like existential part of my brain where it's like I have like I would say I use the philosophical lessons that Outer Wilds taught me like so often. For example, and I'm not saying that like this is the only way to get this lesson, or like I would not have had this perspective otherwise, but I do think it helps solidify this perspective for me in a really concrete way that's grounded in a very specific experience, which I think is very helpful for me. So I can go back to that experience when I want to start thinking through how I feel about something. But like my workplace deals with very political-ish issues. We're a social service institution and in a very red state. And so like, although I think we are filling pretty universal needs that everyone would say needs to be filled, that those are still like really complicated, difficult political conversation about like government, power, taxes, all these kind of things. And so we had a politician on like a national, like anyone who follows politics would know who this person is on a national level in the US, come and visit our workplace. And so like my initial response was like revulsion. I was like, I hate this person. This person would like be okay with me being deported. Like even though like there's so many things I don't like about this person, and like the meaning that I found in his visit to our thing was so secondary to like the meaning that I was able to create. So like I'm like, okay, like this is what's happening. Here is my job. How am I going to manufacture a meaning that I feel like is helping our overall like goals for my organization? And I think like that process of like, okay, here's an event that I either like or don't like, or whatever this event is, and it has like meaning that I will attach to like automatically or without trying. And I think one of the things that Outer Wilds did was it showed me like, hey, meaning making is a process that you are a participant in. And so when you want to create meaning, like you are part of that manufacturing process. And so like existentially, it definitely gave me like a existential cope, even though it's not like immediate, panic attack or things like that. But yeah, I think video games have definitely helped me put those kind of things into perspective in such a like I can literally go back and listen to the soundtrack and like feel all those ideas again. Like I think that's something that's so beautiful, is like I can have this anxiety, be like, okay, I remember my experience playing this game, and then like go back to that experience. And like that does help me with like clarity sometimes.
Yeah.
So anyway,
that makes sense.
I don't know if that really answers your question or not, but I've talked for so long. So
I think it does. I mean, for me, I guess like it's just anxiety, but I think in general it's coping. And I think that that's a good use case of like coping mechanisms, where like making meaning yourself, or kind of turning a situation that maybe you would have just been disgusted in, but kind of making it meaningful, making it something that you can kind of align with, because you don't really have a choice in being in that situation. So instead of just being, angry, grumpy old man, you can, make your own meaning out of it, which I think that's perfectly valid. What about you, Seth?
That's the double. So also, I don't remember if this was part of the pre-show or if this was something that we had on for the cold open. I mean this in the nicest way possible, but I think I'm the most neurotypical person on this podcast.
Yep.
Because we'll cover that one later. We'll leave that for the audience, because I don't remember if the stuff that we were talking about is actually in here. But like I do not have the like lived experience of like having a panic attack. I do not have anxiety, at least not in a way that is debilitating towards my life in any way. I have neurotypical anxiety, which I only got to really like experience what that looks like through my fiance, who has like diagnosed depressive and has anxiety as well. So, and like I have learned some like coping skills and stuff for her through just like the lived experience of being with her. But like for me, I think games often come down to, because I play like so many roguelike games in the sort of first place. So I think there's been like interesting things I've learned from that. I don't know if it's necessarily on the like coping side of things, but I think it like games have done a good job at helping me like get outside perspectives on things. Because I don't tend to be a very like internally reflective kind of person. So I think Dempsey versus like your example for like Outer Wilds, it's hard for me to like play a game and then be like, oh, here's something that I like personally think and like how it's going to like impact my life just from like that experience. but for helping me realize that, like, oh, here's this like series of experiences and how like somebody else might be affected by the outside of things. I think there's definitely like games I've played that impact on that side. But then to go to like another example that examples we've talked about a lot, and it's sort of, I think, a classical example of this is like playing through, I think, any of the Souls games ultimately teaches you something about resiliency, because it's just hard to get through those games without running into an obstacle at some point. And one of the things I find most interesting about the Souls games, and Elden Ring, talking about it as a genre, is everybody struggles at a different place. So it's actually really interesting to talk to other people like about Elden Ring or about Dark Souls, because the boss that took you a week to beat, somebody first tried, and the boss that you first tried, took somebody else a week to beat.
Yeah. That was me with Malekith in Elden Ring, where I beat him first try in my first playthrough.
That's
but everyone else I know is like, that's insane. That's the hardest boss in the game. And I'm like, I lucked out. I don't know what to tell you. And every subsequent playthrough, I do get stuck on him. But yeah, that's.
Did I ever tell you, Brett, that I one-shot the Orphan of Kos?
No, that is incredible. That's genuinely really, really impressive.
Yeah, I literally sat that Dempsey, and for everybody else, Orphan of Kos is the final boss for the Bloodborne DLC. So it's like beating the hardest boss in the whole game just first try on accident.
Yeah.
So the boss that takes you forever to do will take somebody else days or a week or however long. The alternative is that the boss at the end of Sekiro, Genichiro, it legitimately took me like 3 days of solid play to beat, after having played through all of Sekiro, which it should have been easier. But, I mean, the guy pulls out a Glock. Like, what are you going to do?
Literally pulls out a Glock and then summons lightning from the heavens. I still haven't beat him. I logged over 100 attempts. And I got sick of the game and put it down. And now it's been too long since I've played it that I couldn't just pick it up. And I have to replay the entire game to try to beat him again. So that's my experience with that.
So, yeah, I mean, but, greater point I'm making is I think those games do teach you something about resiliency. And they also teach you that, like, your experience is not the same as others. But part of that is like the social aspect of gaming and needing to talk to other people to realize that. I famously, when I was in college and I was doing identity stuff for my education classes, I famously told my TA that I think I realized about myself that I didn't know that anybody else existed until I hit like 10th grade. Which is sort of the opposite of Dempsey's like, I don't exist. I was like, I'm the only person who exists.
And you thought that it's like where you don't realize that everyone else has their own like individual lives. You just kind of like saw people around you as just kind of like NPCs, basically.
Yeah, I mean, not like that egotistical, but more just in the sense that like I thought everybody else had my lived experience. And I didn't realize that everyone had sort of their own unique lived experience that was different than mine. Which I think people are supposed to figure out when they're like 18 months or something. But took me till like 10th grade. But I think games were part of helping me realize that.
Sure.
Us all having played Silksong, do we think that Silksong taught us anything about patience? Like, I mean, you talked about like the Souls games. Patience, or I know another big theme of that game that I kind of took was the solitude in, I guess, like, the destruction or the events of the world around us. So for me, I had to learn a lot of patience in that game because it's just a very, very, very tough game. And while that game didn't make me feel anxious at all, it did make me feel very frustrated because I would get to a boss, I would do it 10 times and get absolutely nowhere with it. So for me, Silksong was a good lesson in, if you just slow down, take every move as it, like, don't play reactively, like play on your terms. Make every move on your terms, not just because the enemies are coming at you, just because you think they have an opening. Make it when it's actually good, when you know it's good. The game taught me a lot about patience, and I do think I'm actually better at playing Metroidvania and Souls games because I played Silksong, because it taught me to be less reactive while I was gaming. So like specifically in relation to like learning something about gaming, I think Silksong taught me how to be less reactive when gaming, which has made me better at gaming, I think.
I think that one thing that video games do, and I don't know how sad this is going to sound, but I think that in regular day-to-day life, this is my experience. I'll just speak from my experience. I don't necessarily get the opportunity to like lock in, like flow state lock in my day-to-day life.
Sure.
There's very few times I would say like I lock in flow state. I think the only time I really get to do that is like when I'm directing, like video directing. And that's maybe like 5 to 10% of my job. A lot of it's like pre-production and like a bunch of billion other tasks. Like when I'm on set, I'm locked in and like in flow state as if so I think one of the things that video games can do is they can give you an opportunity to be in that like high consequence, solid focus flow state more often than you would get to be otherwise. And I do think that there are times in which I'm like, okay, I am going to like make what feels like high consequence decisions very quickly and very decisively. And I think that obviously video games aren't the only place to learn how to do that, but they are like a safe, attainable place that has like a good mixture of like real actual consequence and also like low, like not that high a consequence. And so
Yeah.
it's a good kind of consequence in video games because it lets you, like in my actual job, right? It's high consequence because if it goes bad, I could lose my job.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I would say like that's not that's not necessarily like a safe like a safe place to fail necessarily, like directing in real life or whatever. Like in a video game, I think it affords you like almost practice time that you would otherwise not have any access to. Maybe you guys feel like you guys get to lock in more often in your life, but I feel like locking in for me is definitely not something I do every day. And I do feel like video games give me a little bit more what it feels like to have to be immediate in the moment, like knowing that there's danger or a high stressful situation and still keeping like a really solid functional foundation. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but I am saying it's like a little practice for it.
Yeah.
Because I don't necessarily often get that opportunity in my real life. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I mean, I'm very much the same way where like in my like professional life or with a lot of like my day to day, I also don't lock in. And I was going to try to go an episode without mentioning ADHD, but like because I have ADHD, I just, my brain does kind of just go everywhere all at once. And I do kind of I do something for 20 minutes and then I get frustrated or bored with doing this thing, and then I have to like switch activities, and I kind of like switch up a lot like that. And like when I'm working or when I'm doing a lot of hobbies, that tends to happen. And one of the only times that doesn't happen is when I find a game that I really want to play. So for me right now, that game is Death Stranding, where I can just lock into being a delivery man. And I think it's because it's so different than my day-to-day. Like it's something that I will never have to go through, is carrying someone in a body bag on my back to a volcano or whatever is happening in that game.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, like in my life, a lot of like when I get to flow, like a lot of that does come from gaming. And maybe that's why it is so important to me, because it is something that's so like integral to me being able to learn, like how to make quick decisions, or like with Detroit Become Human, or I talk about Mass Effect a lot, or a lot of these games that have, especially that has a timed decision thing, like any of these like Heavy Rain, things like that have timed decisions that make you make decisions at literally the snap of a finger. Sure. I think that really does teach you consequence in a very controlled environment. I do think that's a really good point. And I do think that is maybe something that I've learned that in how to make good impulsive decisions, because I think that's a problem for a lot of people, is making good impulsive decisions. Because I think when we say, oh, I made an impulse purchase, usually it has a negative connotation towards it, or oh, I did this impulsively. It's like impulse has such a bad connotation to it. But I think that in a way, playing a lot of those games has given me good impulse control in certain things. It's like maybe I have a better sense of the right or wrong thing to kind of say based on some of these experiences. Not that I'm ever going to be in a spaceship with aliens and, you know, whether I flip one of them off or not means that the world gets blown up, but, you know, in smaller things.
I find like high consequence social interactions to benefit from thinking of it almost like a conversation tree. So like talking, like, for example, sometimes when you have like higher profile people, you have to organize with a secret service or like their publicist or whatever. Like these people that feel like you don't want to, you know, like they feels like higher consequence somehow. And so like me thinking of like, okay, this is what I'm going to say. And then they're going to ask me this question. And then this is going to lead to this conversation that I need to get to. Like, and so I think for me, thinking about like higher stakes social conversations, like a skill tree, has actually been like kind of helpful.
So gamifying real life.
Yeah.
Okay, Seth, in that context, do you gamify real life at all? Does that help you with like your job at all?
No. I'm actually gonna push back on that idea because I don't like the gamified real life. So I'll talk about this, and then I want to go back to one of our ideas. But to the extent that like when I have to like memorize something, I don't like the idea of like mnemonic devices. Like, I think you should just sit down and memorize it.
Okay. Look it over here, Mr. Neurodivergent. Or wait, no, neurotypical. Sorry.
Yeah. My very eager mother pizza did not order 9 whatever.
No, yeah, because like
there's so many mnemonic devices in science, though. That's not the majority of the mnemonic devices that I know.
Here's the case, right? Like a good example of this is metric conversions, having to do like, for the love of God, I hope everyone listening to this has learned this at some point in their life. But you know, like having to go from like kilometer down to hect, down to deca, down to, you know, base unit, and just like, you know, go down the tree. Like you can learn like King Henry does whatever. But like it's also a list of like 9 things. If you just like sat down and you just like wrote them a bunch of times and then did like, okay, I'm going to write 1 and then 2 and then I'm going to do like 1, 2, 3. It would take you like half an hour to memorize like 9 things. Which again is, I guess, me just being like neurotypical, but also it's like 9 things. If you just did it like for 10 minutes over the course of like 3 days, you would memorize it.
Fair.
So that is me.
No, I
kind of get it.
Because this hold on. The point of a mnemonic is that it's not information that you're going to use daily, but when you need to recall it, you have the ability to recall it. Like, let's take the planets, for example. I'm not using that information earlier, but if I'm trying to remember, are we closer to Saturn or are we closer to Jupiter? Right? Which one is closer to Earth? I'm going to go through my little mnemonic. Okay, hold on. Wait. Seth knows because he's a science teacher. Brett, do you know, just off the top of your head, are we closer to Jupiter or are we closer to Saturn?
I got a 50-50 shot, so I could guess, but I'm going to tell you no, I do not know, because I am really bad at learning mnemonic devices. Because, no, Seth, don't roll your eyes at me. I'm bad at learning things that I don't want to learn, and I don't feel like I need to learn whether I'm closer to Saturn or Jupiter, so I cannot be bothered to learn this because my brain will bounce off of it. I will bounce off this information.
Sure.
I can't.
And I think at some point everyone's going to lose that granularity.
It's Saturn.
in information, and so no, it's Jupiter because it's just served. Because it just served us. And so I'm going to go to bat for mnemonic devices. I think they're good. I think the kingdoms as well, like the phylum, you know.
See, but like you don't even know.
But if I had a mnemonic device, I feel like I would know.
Okay, I'm gonna push back on this, and then we're gonna skip because it's not what we want to talk about.
Okay.
The issue with something like a mnemonic device, and this is getting into like actual, I guess, education theory. The problem I have with something like a mnemonic device is the same problem I have with trying to explain stuff in science using analogies, is to say like, oh, it's like this other thing, is because that doesn't help you understand the like underlying concept about why those things are the way they are. So like if you understand the dynamic of how our solar system formed, you don't need a mnemonic device for the planet order, because of course Jupiter is before Saturn, it's larger.
I knew that.
And like the way that our solar system formed would help inform your understanding of that. So like you're using a mnemonic device in place of actual learning because you're shortcutting the process, which I guess is like a granularity issue, but you would remember things better if you actually bothered to learn it instead of using a mnemonic device to shortcut the process. Anyway, we'll leave that. We'll come back to this is education topic for a different day. The other thing I want to talk about.
Write in. Do you know off the top of your head, first of all, which one is bigger? And second of all, which one is closer?
Now that we've talked about it.
Now that we talked about it, but like when I asked it the first time, go back, let us know. Did you know immediately which one was closer to Earth?
Okay, so I also think I'm in an advantageous position where I do have the ability to get into a good flow state for my job, because I think that's a lot of what teaching is. But I'm in a very performative job.
Yeah.
And I straight up tell this to my students a lot. I say, like, you are aware of me as a teacher, but like I'm Mr. Wilcox to you guys, but then at home I'm just Seth, right? And those are two very different people who live very different lives and do very different things.
Yeah.
And interact with people in the world in like two very different ways. So I think part of being a teacher for me is that like performative flow state of like, I am here and doing a thing. And I've often talked about, maybe not here on the podcast, but I've often talked to other people about like, when I teach, I don't have the opportunity to have like anxiety about whether my lesson is going to go good or not, because I have like 50 minutes and I have a room full of like 25 teenagers who like need to learn something. And I can't be like freezing up in front of the room being like, I'm worried if this is going to work or not. Like it's game day and like we have to execute the plan. And I think part of that is the flow state and like the understanding that like I'm into this now. Sure, so I think for games, because we talked about like using games to get into a flow state, that hasn't been super helpful to me because I get a lot of practice opportunity for that. But I think where games have been much more helpful for me is in like critical thinking process. There's like a meme going around about roguelike games that they're all just like pick 3. I'm going to give you 3 options and you just have to like pick one of them, which is, I think, ultimately like fairly low stakes. Dempsey, like you said, fairly low stakes decision making. I'm thinking about like Hades, you know, at the end of every room, they give you like 2 different rooms you can go into. And ultimately, like, if you just went left every room, would your run be as good? No, but like, would it be like 75% as good? Like, probably. Like, it probably ultimately doesn't matter a ton, especially when there's like elements of skill that go into play. But I've been actually using that same concept like in designing like test questions for my students recently, because I took that idea of like pick 3 and I've been giving students a situation where it's to, just because we've been talking about the planets, I gave them like 3 different planets and I gave them some detailed information about the planets of like, oh, here's planet A, B, and C. Here's what their atmospheres are made out of. Here's what they're made out of. Here's they've got like tectonic activity. Here's like a bunch of information. Mr. Wilcox is going out to go visit each one of these planets. based on the information provided, which do you think is most likely to have life and why? So like I give my students a pick 3 situation and I'm like, now make a decision, get some critical thinking involved. And I thought to do that because I think I was literally playing through Hades and I was like, oh, there's like a decision to be made here. And part of the critical thinking skill there is like pick from these options.
I think that's a perfectly valid version of this, like, especially if you're not relating it to, like, I guess, like a neurotypical thing, like anxiety or depression. I think that's like a perfect, like, good real life application for this sort of topic, as close as you can get, anyways.
Thank you.
But have you ever just put every answer on the test as A just to screw with people?
No, I've thought about it. But like, here's the thing. This is like, I don't want to do that for the sake of my students. Because like, I've legitimately thought about doing that, just even for like a fairly low stakes quiz. But like 75% of the students I teach or hire are either non-native English speakers or have some sort of individualized education plan. And like, I don't want a room full of like 17-year-olds who like all the answers are A and everybody's got anxiety about it. And like, everyone's like, oh man, like, is there one of them that's B or are they actually all A? Like, I want them
because I would start throwing out answers like I'd be like, oh, I know the answer to this one's A, but I got to pick C because I picked A 4 times in a row. Like,
right.
You just like unintentionally fail all your students.
Right. And like at that point, I think this is also the point, but you know, like this is my job. And like part of my job is like I need to be able to properly evaluate if the kids learned the information or not. And if I'm going around and like making every answer A, I'm just like intentionally sabotaging my ability to do my like it doesn't necessarily like poorly reflect on me. It's just like self-sabotage for a meme. Like it's just not worth
fair.
doing.
Another example of kind of what I was talking about in the beginning, and I think I just mentioned this before we started recording, but we've talked ad nauseum about Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and I know that like we all kind of got something different from that game. I think we all kind of got a different message, whether it was loss and grief or capitalism is always the bad guy or, you know, whatever we gleaned from that game. And kind of circling back to the topic in this way is, I think a very good direct experience is kind of the same as Dempsey, similar to Dempsey's previous example in a way, is that I think Expedition 33 really taught me how to cope with grief in a really healthy way, in that like the message I got from it, and I talked about this a lot on our Expedition 33 episode with Ran, a lot of what I got from that was that you just like need to let go, and it's okay, like, you know, it's useless just to clutch pearls all the time just because you have something that you think is good and you don't want to miss that thing, or you don't want to not have to be without that. It doesn't mean that you have to like force it into existence in whatever form you're doing that for. And for me, particularly at this point in my life right now, that's really important to me as I'm making very important decisions for my own life, that sometimes I just need to let go of things. Like I got a very good opportunity today in my life that could be pretty beneficial for me. It would serve a very good purpose right now, but overall, I think it's a bad choice. And I think I've come to that because it's like, I need to just like let go of the idea of what I think I should be doing or what I think I want to be doing, and go with what is good for everything in my life. Like I have to think about my wife. I have to think about our life. I have to think about like, if I do this one thing, that means I'm not going to be home until 2 hours later. And if we get to spend 2 hours less together every day, what does that mean for our relationship? And I know we're two very codependent people, so that means that our relationship deteriorates, which means that this decision, which could be very beneficial for me, Expedition 33 kind of helped me with that a little bit, in just, it's okay to let go, and it's okay to just like let this thing go by and not think about it, or like, you know, take the lessons that you got from it and just let it go. You don't have to take every single good opportunity. You don't have to force everything to be like the right decision, I guess. I don't know how to articulate that very well, or if I'm articulating that well at all, but that's kind of a very recent example of this.
I guess spoilers for Expedition 33. But yeah, that was the...
Yeah.
That,
I tried
that
to be as non-spoilery about it as possible.
That was the point of that game, is like holding on to that stuff is like literal torture, and will ultimately leads to a kind of unavoidable suffering that is that you can either like move on from the suffering or kind of be eternally bound to that kind of suffering. So you gotta let Batsu die or whatever, you know?
Yeah, you just gotta, screw Holvad, right? He doesn't deserve to be there.
Yeah, we might have to beep that. That might be too big of a spoiler. we might have to not say that.
Yeah, we'll just censor that. That's fine.
Okay, do we want to do final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Yeah, I guess so. Final thoughts in closing. So I don't know how many final thoughts I don't really know what my final thoughts are on this topic, other than I think it's important to look at games as an art piece and as a learning narrative experience, because I think that all games inherently, no matter how silly or thought out or thought provoking they are, I think every game has something to be said by the creator and a lesson that they've learned in their life that they are willing to impart onto you, no matter what that might be, or how significant, insignificant, or how much it correlates to your life. But I think that everything in games, because I believe that games are an art form that's hotly contested thing in the last couple of years, whether or not video games are art. I inherently believe that they are. And I think that all art has something to teach us about how to be better and how to treat people better, or how to live your own experience better. Because it took me, a really long time in my life to come to the realization that every time my mom told me to put on a hat when it was cold out, it was for my own good. And every time she told me not to wear a fleece sweater when it was 40 degrees outside, 40 degrees Celsius, I feel like I have to clarify, that was for my own good. And there is something to be said about taking little messages from people and trying to impart them on your life and learn something about, or learn something from all these experiences, because everyone has had a different experience from you, as Seth has now learned in his life.
Took me a while.
And we should listen to other people and learn from other people, because it'll help us be better people. I think that's it. I don't know. Maybe I'm waxing poetic a little too much there, but
so for my final words, final meal. What is this? Last meal? Final thoughts.
These are your last words before you die. Choose them wisely.
Yeah.
This is it.
So I think play for all mammals, evolutionarily speaking, the purpose of play, biologically speaking, is to prepare for real life situations. That is why young kids play. You can see that in developmental psychology. And I think to some extent, that's why we play video games, is we're kind of putting on these lower consequence situations. And I think ultimately the reason why the brain craves that is to prepare for when we have to recontextualize those tools in higher consequence situations. So I think it makes a lot of sense, especially because of how participatory and play video games are, that they would kind of be built around taking skills that are useful in real life, contextualizing them in some kind of lower consequence, more entertaining way. But I think fundamentally, a lot of those skills are still going to be useful, whether those are existential skills or emotional skills or whatever kind of cognitive skills those are. I don't think there would be any reason to think that they wouldn't be transferable to other areas, because that's why we play, is to prepare ourselves for higher consequence situations. And so I think coping, I think learning to cope, I think video games giving you an opportunity to cope safely and to test out coping strategies. I think that that's very much in line with what we would expect video games doing, knowing the purpose of play in animals, So that's my That's my final thought.
Honestly, I think you guys nailed it. I'm just reading both of your perspectives there. I think it doesn't come as a surprise to anyone that on a podcast about what video games can teach us, we've come to the conclusion that like video games have a lot to teach us. But I think you guys got it. I don't have anything else.
All right, cool. Follow us on TikTok, Blue Sky, YouTube, Instagram, I believe that we're posting on.
Threads, because Threads automatically posts from Instagram.
Oh yeah, we are threading. We are threading the needle on this one.
Yep.
I don't know what other outro things does Katie usually do.
Oh, send us an email if you have any thoughts about.
If you have any thoughts about coping and anxiety and what video games can teach us, send us an email. We will read it, or at the very least, Katie will read it and then yell at us to go read it. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Every
time you say out or about, I want to make fun of you. I want you to know that. I hold back.
You should make fun of me for that.
When you were like, I'm gonna throw lasagna out, and like you it's so funny.
I'm sorry I don't say out.
No.
Out.
Do you hear it, Seth? When he says like out?
I'm going out.
He did it.
No.